What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and this is video number 2 for today. I meant to get this video out for you guys yesterday, but with everything that had happened with the franchise, I just ended up not having the time to get you guys this video. Today we're going to be doing an off-season recap, and the reason that this video is coming today and not yesterday is because we decided to move up the date of the draft, and we performed it last night. We did all the basically the entire off season in order to try to get ourselves to the next season, because everybody happened to be online that's a part of the franchise, and at that point, once you have everybody online, it's like, okay, well, we might as well get it done, because it can be pretty difficult at times to actually get everybody online at once, especially for the draft. And so with everybody being on, we went ahead and did it, and let's go ahead and recap everything for you guys that happened in the off season. Now, one of the things that I have to mention when we get into the roster is that we obviously struggled with our cap situation bringing J.J. Watt over. You know, that obviously hurt us cap-wise because of his $15 million contract, and that prevented us from being able to re-sign some people. And so across the offensive line, we lost Villanueva at left tackle. We lost Matt Filer at right tackle. We ended up cutting Vance McDonald for cap reasons. We cut Vince Williams at middle linebacker for cap reasons. And we essentially ended up with I want to say it was 36 players going into free agency in the draft. And the reason that I didn't do a video covering free agency was because we just simply did not have the money to go out and bid on any free agents. I think we had roughly $3 or $4 million in cap space, and I knew that with only 36 players on the roster, in order to fill my roster, I would need to go out after the draft and pick up undrafted free agents with my money, as opposed to using that couple $1 million that I had on free agents that were available, because I knew that would cost me more, and in the end I wouldn't have as many players. And so as you guys can see now, I have 52 players out of 53 on my roster. I have a little bit more room that I could add one more, but I'm leaving myself the flexibility in case somebody gets injured that I need to make a change there. But with the roster, I want to talk about exactly how the draft went down. So we're sitting at pick 32, right? And around pick 32, I'm thinking about drafting a replacement at left tackle or right tackle or something like that to plug and play in order to help me out because of the loss of Villanueva and the loss of Matt Filer, and I also lost a couple of my depth receivers, so I was thinking about maybe drafting a wide receiver, and I was also thinking about drafting a corner because Joe Hayden's getting up there in age. So I'm looking at all these players, and all the top players start going off the board. But an interesting thing happened. The quarterbacks started to slide. So Trevor Lawrence went first overall to the Raiders because Derek Carr had a really bad season. He regressed really hard, and they needed a quarterback. So they only had 2 wins. They got the first pick. They took Lawrence. That one was kind of an obvious for our franchise. But then Justin Fields didn't go until the middle of the first round. And Trey Lance, there were some rumors about him going to the Vikings, who's a user in this league, possibly the Titans, a couple different teams, and he ended up sliding until the end of the first round. And I'm sitting there at pick 32, and I'm like, man, I have to get Trey Lance. Now, I have to preface this by saying you guys are seeing that Mason Rudolph isn't on the roster, and there's a reason for that. Because there were 3 or 4 teams that did not have a quarterback on their roster going into the offseason because of retirements, because of regression, because of players not being re-signed. So you guys will see players like Dak Prescott actually went over to the Colts. And so the Bears, I believe, the Cowboys, the Saints, various different teams ended up without a quarterback. And so we decided to capitalize on that situation, and we traded away Mason Rudolph to one of those quarterback-needy teams where he is now starting for the New Orleans Saints, okay? And so this was a big thing for us because going into the draft or going into this franchise in general, I'm thinking Mason Rudolph is going to be the future for this team because that's the realistic play to do. But at a certain point, whenever there are so many teams that are quarterback needy, you decide to pull the trigger on trading your quarterback and getting back the maximum value for him that you ever could. You know, Mason Rudolph is 26 years old at this point. He's not going to turn into Superman or anything like like that. And so we decided to pull the trigger on that. And I guess the other thing is Ben Roethlisberger didn't retire after winning the Super Bowl. So those two factors led me into the decision to get younger at the future quarterback position and potentially grab somebody that has better potential. And we struck gold, I think, with Trey Lance at pick 32 overall, because this guy is a 72 overall, 23-year-old hidden development player. So he's a fantastic addition to the team. He has a good arm, and I'm going to be able to develop him into a very good player for when Ben does actually retire. So we got really lucky with the quarterback situation. And then in the 7th round, I believe it was, we selected De'Aaron King, is I believe how you pronounce his name, just as a third quarterback option, somebody that's more of a scrambler that could potentially play a role in this offense if we ever get him going in any type of significant way. And maybe a little bit of competition as well. So we decided to pick him up later on in the draft. Now, our next pick was going to be to fill in the gap at wide receiver because, like I said, I had lost a lot of my wide receiving depth to the offseason. I just simply couldn't afford to bring back guys like Deon Cain, Saeed Blacknell. I just didn't have the money for it. I couldn't give them contracts. And so my objective going into this draft was to get one, if not two or three depth receivers for the team, and we ended up going out and getting Rondale Moore out of Purdue, a very solid wide receiver. Turned out to be a lot faster than I thought he was with that 95 speed, but on top of that, he has hidden depth. So we got really lucky. We got essentially a Steelers draft pick here with Rondale Moore in the 2nd round, able to help us out. Now, the last player that we got at wide receiver is Tyrone Ash, and I don't believe I know exactly where he got drafted. It was 6th or 7th round, so let's take a look at that. He got drafted in the 7th round, late 7th round, so another depth wide receiver just to help us out, and a pretty good wide receiver at that as a 23-year-old, 68 overall, pretty athletic, decent hands. So, a couple of good adds to fill out our wide receiving core. Another thing that we can talk about is that we did add a later round halfback as well, Trey Regis out of UL Lafayette. Another speedy back that probably won't see a lot of playing time, but I don't plan on re-signing Jalen Samuels when his contract negotiation comes up, so he will be bumped up to that depth running back spot that Jalen Samuels plays at the moment. In terms of the offensive line, we did make a couple of important picks on the offensive line, and we made a couple important decisions. So at center, Marquise Pouncey is going to start there still, and David DeCastro at right guard. So those are pretty much locked up. But at left tackle, we're going to start Chukwuma Okorafor. I feel like he is the returning tackle that he didn't allow a sack all last season. I think that he'll be effective at that position, and we can continue to develop him into a long-term starter for us. And then what we did was we drafted center Jarrett Patterson, and we're going to be playing him at left guard because he's a relatively athletic player. And this was a really good pick for us because he has hidden development as a 21-year-old. So a really good addition to the offensive line there. And then later on, we also picked Spencer Brown to play right tackle for us. So we are going to be starting 2 rookie right tackles, and we are going to have a lot of rookie backup offensive linemen as well. As you guys will see going from left tackle to right, we picked up young guys that are not a lot of money to back up our O-line in John Steinbach, left guard Nick Killings, who's actually a pretty good player, all things considered, center Justice Carroll, right guard Curtis Gold, and right tackle Jonathan Sanford. And so that's a perfect example of what I was talking about, having to fill in my roster with undrafted free agents. I believe every single one of these guys, except for Curtis Gold, is an undrafted free agent that I added to my team to try to back those guys up. Now, the other draft picks that I have to talk about, I didn't add anybody to the D-line, so the D-line has stayed the same since last season. You guys can just see this real quick. We moved Isaiah Buggs from right end to D tackle to be the backup there. And then at the linebacker positions, pretty much everybody has stayed the same. We did add a couple of depth linebackers as undrafted free agents in Gabe White and Garrett Fox, a couple of decent linebackers there. And then right outside linebacker Sutton Smith returns as the backup there. Cornerback is where we added another very important player in TJ Carter. We ended up getting what I would consider to be a steal in TJ Carter. For whatever reason, he was able to fall to me in the draft, and he turned out out to be a very good prospect with hidden development. So the guy that is certainly going to be able to replace Joe Hayden once he's gone. He was drafted in the 3rd round, so another really good pick from us there. And then the only other ad was actually 2 more ads, was an undrafted free agent free safety in Jared Stern, and then what I would consider one of our pretty good picks of the draft was actually Tim Elam, the punter, and I believe we took him in the 4th round. So Tim Elam has a pretty good leg with 93 kick power, which I like. Nothing particularly special about him, just the fact that we're going to have a cheap punter around for a few years, and we didn't have to sign one in free agency, so that saved us quite a bit of money. So that's where we stand in terms of everything after the offseason. You guys can see who was moved and who came in. Like I said, the reason that I didn't cover the offseason as it went was because of the fact that there just wasn't a lot to cover. You know, we really couldn't participate in free agency because of the cap situation. We weren't really able to do too many trades. Like I said, the only trade was capitalizing on the quarterback market and trading away Mason Rudolph to a team that needed him, and then that was about it. At that point, it was just gearing up for the draft and getting ready to sign undrafted free agents to fill out our roster afterwards. Now, with that being said, I will go ahead and let you guys know what our schedule is set as this year, I guess I could say. So if we take a look at the schedule and we look across the board, we start off with the Ravens, which should be a tough matchup. We get the Raiders in week 2. This is not actually a user. This is just a commissioner's second account that helps us with editing. So that will be a CPU as well. The Browns, this is the guy that was the Eagles last year, bumped over to my side of the NFL, bumped over to the AFC to give me a little bit more competition. So we're going to have the Browns twice a year, and those should be pretty good matchups. Then we have the Lions as a CPU, the Bengals. We have the Browns once again in week 7. We have the Broncos in week 8. Then we have the user, who's the Vikings, in week 9. They're looking to bounce back after missing the playoffs. And then everything else is a CPU between the Packers, the Colts, the Dolphins, the Bengals, the Bears, the Chiefs, the Ravens, until we get to week 17, where we face the Chargers, who had a pretty good late run to the season last year, starting off 0-4 and finding their way into the playoffs. So it should be interesting to see if he has improved up until the point of week 17, and if he can give us a run for our money. Hopefully at that point we don't have to play our starters. That's my expectation, is that during this game is going to be pretty meaningless. But things could change as the season goes along, and that's how it's happened so far. I guess I could show you guys that the Chargers have won their first game 30-3, and then the Vikings won their first game 24-21, as well as the 49ers winning 38-24. And then the Raiders, obviously, as I said before, lost 30-3. That's not a user. So that's how things stack up, and hopefully you guys are intrigued to see the rest of the season. We have modified the rules so that everybody has to stream their games this season, and we're going to be streaming every single one of them. So we've discussed that we may record a couple of the games and just upload them. So a couple of the games might go up without commentary or anything like that. So I just want you guys to be warned. But I also want you guys to be on the lookout for everybody else's games. I'll get you guys the information on where they're streaming them. I can tell you guys right now that the Vikings are streaming on Diamond King 5923. You guys have heard me mention his channel multiple times before. I'll let you guys know at some point which channel the Browns are streaming on and these other guys are streaming on, and I'll get their information out there for you guys to make that easier, so you guys can see more of what's going on around the league and get a better picture of things. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this recap of what happened in the offseason. I'll give you guys an overall view of the team as I do my outro here. So just make sure you guys leave a like on the video if you did enjoy and you want to see more from this franchise. This seems to be pretty popular on the channel right now, so I'm enjoying it, and I'm enjoying keeping it going for you guys. Make sure you guys leave that like, comment down below with what you guys would like to see happen with the team. What are your predictions for this team, record-wise and things like that after seeing the schedule? Who do you think will perform well? Who do you guys think might not perform well? Let me know who you guys think would be like your surprise performer for the year, or your dark horse candidate to like break out or something like that. That could be pretty interesting to see what your guys' opinions are on that. And make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'll see you guys in the next video. I really hope you guys have a good night. I'll see ya. Peace.